Motorcycle speedway, usually referred to as speedway, is a motorcycle sport involving 4 and sometimes up to 6 riders competing over 4 anti-clockwise laps of an oval circuit. Speedway motorcycles use only one gear and have no brakes. Racing takes place on a flat oval track usually consisting of dirt, loosely packed shale, or dolomite. Competitors use this surface to slide their machines sideways, powersliding or broadsiding into the bends. On the straight sections of the track, the motorcycles reach speeds of up 70 miles per hour. The exact origins of the sport are unknown, but there is evidence of a type of speedway racing being practiced in the USA before the First World War, and in Australia in the late 1910s and early 1920s. There are now both domestic and international competitions in a number of countries, including the Speedway World Cup, whilst the highest overall scoring individual in the Speedway Grand Prix events is pronounced the world champion. Speedway is popular in Central and Northern Europe and to a lesser extent in Australia and North America. A variant of track racing, speedway is administered internationally by the Fédération Internationale de Motocyclisme. Domestic speedway events are regulated by FIM-affiliated national motorsport federations. History. The early history of speedway race meetings is a subject of much debate and controversy. There is evidence to show that meetings were held on small dirt tracks in Australia and the United States before World War I. An American rider named Don Johns was known to have used broadsiding before 1914. It was said that he would ride the entire racecourse wide open, throwing great showers of dirt into the air at each turn. By the early 1920s, John's style of cornering was followed in the US, where the sport was initially called short-track racing by riders such as Albert Shrimp Burns, Maldwin Jones and Eddie Brink. Consequently, two long-held and common beliefs are incorrect. First, that New Zealand-born rider Johnny Hoskins invented the sport, and second, that the first meeting was held on the 15th of December 1923 at West Maitland Showground, in the Hunter region of New South Wales, Australia. For instance, a contemporary newspaper report of this meeting, in the Maitland Mercury, mentions previous meetings. The first meeting in the United Kingdom took place at High Beach on the 19th of February 1928. There are, however, claims that meetings were held in 1927 at Camberley, Surrey and Droylsden, Lancashire, despite being described as the first British dirt truck meeting at the time. The meeting at Camberley on the 7th of May 1927 differed in that the races were held in a clockwise direction. Races at Droylsden were held in an anti-clockwise direction, but it is generally accepted that the sport arrived in the United Kingdom when Australians Billy Galloway and Keith Mackay arrived with the intention of introducing speedway to the Northern Hemisphere. Both featured in the 1928 High Beach meeting. The first speedway meeting in the UK to feature bikes with no brakes and broadsiding round corners on loose dirt was the third meeting held at High Beach on the 9th of April 1928, where Colin Watson, Alf Metcalf and Digger Bew demonstrated the art for the first time in the UK. Proto-Speedway was staged in Glasgow at the Olympic Stadium on April 9, 1928, and the first fully professional meeting was staged at Celtic Park on April 28, 1928. The first meeting in Wales was staged at Cardiff White City on Boxing Day 1928. In the 1928-29 season at the Melbourne Exhibition Speedway, Australian Colin Stewart won the prestigious Silver Gauntlet, which required the rider to win the feature race 10 times in one season. He won it 12 times. He also achieved success at an international level, racing for Southampton Saints in 1929 and captained Glasgow in the Northern League in 1930 before moving to Wembley Lions in 1931, for whom he rode in just 4 matches, averaging 4.00 points per match. He also raced in the 1930 Scottish Championship, which was won by Wembley Lions' Harry Whitfield. The forerunner of the World Championship, the Star Riders Championship, was inaugurated in Great Britain in 1929 but was split into 2 sections as it was felt that the British riders were not yet the equal of the Australians and Americans. Frank Arthur won the overseas section and Roger Frogley the British. The following year the 2 sections were amalgamated and Vic Huxley proved to be the winner. Huxley was also runner-up 3 times and won the first British match race championship in 1931. Speedway racing typically took place on purpose-built tracks, although in Australia bikes shared larger speedways with cars such as sprint cars, speed cars and saloons, with tracks traditionally ranging from 1/3 mile showground tracks, such as the now closed 520 metres Claremont Speedway in Perth and the 509 metre Sydney Showground, to smaller, purpose-built 300 metres long motorcycle tracks, such as Gilman Speedway in Adelaide and Mildura's Olympic Park. Speed: each truck is between 260 and 425 meters long and it takes approximately 1 minute to complete 4 laps. For example, 10-time Australian champion Lee Adams set a record time of 59 seconds on a 342 meters track and produced an average speed of 83 kilometers per hour. The speed on straight sections of the track reaches 110 kilometers per hour or more on longer tracks, but the limited speed on curves lowers the average. At the start of a race it takes between 1 and 2 seconds for the motorcycle to reach the curve speed, which is roughly estimated to be the equivalent of 2.5 to 3 seconds to reach 100 kilometers per hour. The start of the race is an important aspect of the race overall. Gating correctly can help a rider gain an initial advantage over other riders, but speed advantages can be made as a race progresses. Those riders willing to take a risk and opt for finding the grippy parts of the track rather than the race line are sometimes rewarded with extra speed, allowing them to pass other riders either on the outside or the inside track. Tracks used for professional speedway racing are regulated by the Fédération Internationale de Motocyclisme, who provide rules concerning construction, size and safety requirements. Speedway racing takes place on a level oval track consisting of 2 straights joined by 2 semicircles. Tracks must be between 260 and 425 meters in length. This is measured at a distance of 1 meter from the inner boundary. Tracks may be banked, but the gradient must under no circumstances exceed 5% in the straight, 10% in the bends, and must remain constant and grow from the inner edge to the safety fence. A white start line is marked across the track approximately midway along one of the straights. The starting area is also divided into 4 equal parts by white lines marked at right angles to the start line and extending back at least 1 meter. Additional rules govern the placement of warning systems such as lights and also the construction of the starting mechanism. The minimum track width is 10 meters on the straights and the bends must be at least 14 meters wide. The minimum widths give each rider adequate space to safely navigate the track. The start line and starting gate assembly is halfway along one of the 2 straight sections of the track. Starting gates are simple spring-loaded mechanisms that raise 2 or 3 strands of tape to start the race. The FIM regulations require licensed tracks to provide a garage or pit area for motorcycles as well as medical and press facilities. Track boundaries are marked by white lines or barriers on the inside and outside of the track. Any rider who crosses this boundary with both wheels will be disqualified unless they only did so in the interest of safety or were forced by another competitor. The track surface consists of 4 layers of grading, the topmost of which must be of shale, granite, brick granules or other loose material of which no individual piece can be over 7 mm in size. Competitors use this surface to slide the machine sideways into the bends using the rear wheel to scrub off speed while still providing the drive to power the bike forward and around the bend. The skill of Speedway lies in the overall ability of the rider to control his motorcycle when cornering and thus avoid losing places through deceleration. The use of asphalt, concrete and tarmac for any layer is prohibited. The top layer must be leveled or graded at intervals during an event by tractors towing specially adapted rakes to evenly redistribute the surface. Tracks are watered before and, if needed, during meetings to prevent the surface becoming too dry and to protect the public and the riders from dust. Safety requirements include the use of suspended wire fences, air fences and wooden fences. Air fences are made up of inflated panels installed on the bends. The fence is designed to dissipate energy by allowing an impacted area to compress and transfer into the rest of the fence through a blower. The valves are restriction ports connected to the other sections. They are mandatory for tracks in the British Elite League, Polish Ekstraliga, Speedway Grand Prix and Speedway World Cup. Neutral zones outside the track provide safe run-off areas for riders and the machinery to minimize the potential risk of injury to spectators. The majority of tracks are dedicated to speedway or other sports such as sidecar speedway and banger racing. For larger events, the FIM occasionally sanctions the use of stadiums that install temporary tracks such as the British Grand Prix held at the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff. Motorcycles. Speedway uses a unique type of motorcycle, governed by the FIM's track racing technical rules. In the past, bikes with upright engines were used, but today most professional riders use lay-down bikes as it is argued that they are easier to handle. As Speedway bikes do not use brakes, the clutch is used as a release mechanism at the start of races. FIM regulations state that the motorcycles must have no brakes, are powered by pure methanol, use only one gear and weigh a minimum of 77 kilograms. By using engine and rear wheel sprockets, the gear ratio can be adjusted as required for track conditions. The use of methanol allows for an increased compression ratio to the engine, producing more power than other fuels and resulting in higher speeds. When cornering, machines used must weigh no less than 77 kilograms. Use a 4-stroke, single-cylinder engine with one carburetor and one spark plug and a maximum capacity of 500 cc. Have guards fitted over moving engine parts where reasonable. Use an additional chain guard to prevent a hand or fingers being cut at the nip point where the chain meets the sprocket by a chain. Have a peg fitted to prevent a broken primary chain flailing and injuring a rider or a fellow competitor. Use shatter-resistant plastics where reasonable. Be fitted with a dirt deflector. Be fueled by methanol with no additives. Be fitted with an approved silencer. Have a handlebar width greater than 650 mm and less than 850 mm. Machines used cannot be constructed in any part from titanium. Use uncoated ceramic parts. Use telemetry during a race except for timing purposes. Use any electronic components to control the engine. Use brakes of any form. use supercharger or a turbocharger of any kind. In addition, all motorcycles must have a safety cutout device fitted. This is defined as a switch that must cut off the circuit of the electrical supply by the simple action of pulling a lanyard or a non-elastic string attached to the rider's right wrist. The high compression ratio of the engine can also assist in slowing down a machine. If the throttle is closed, the engine may stop. Riders can stop the bike by deliberately laying down the bike on the track, and this technique is used to avoid riders who fall in front of a pursuing colleague. Before cutouts were fitted, an engine was stopped in an emergency situation by removing the plug lead from the spark plug or shutting off the fuel supply. Racing. Races consist of 4 riders racing over 4 laps from a standing start. Riders wear different colored helmets. Traditionally in team events, red and blue denote home team riders, and white and yellow, black quaded colors denote visiting riders. The starting area is divided into a grid of 4 equal parts, and the riders from each team must take the place in alternate grids or gates. The colors also denote starting positions in individual events. Red is the inside gate, blue starts from gate 2, white starts from gate 3, and yellow, black starts on the outside. Riders must be able to get the bikes to the start line under their own power, without any external assistance, and not by pushing the machine. Then line up in parallel. A rider who is not at the start line within a reasonable period of time is also liable to be disqualified. Although league matches in the UK allow teams to elect to start the disqualified rider 15 meters back from the tapes or replace the disqualified rider with a team reserve. This period of time is standardized to 2 minutes from a time determined by the match referee and usually indicated by a bell, a rotating orange lamp, or a digital clock readout. All riders must be at the tapes under their own power before the 2 minutes have elapsed. Additional time between races will be allowed by and at the discretion of the referee if a rider has 2 consecutive rides, to allow the rider time to prepare. A starting gate consisting of 2 or more tapes is erected across the start line. The riders must situate themselves not more than 10 centimeters from this and not touch it once the green light comes on. They must also remain stationary until the tapes are raised. Failure to do so is known as a tape infringement and can result in a false start being recorded and the rider penalized. The races started with the raising of the start tape mechanism operated by the match referee, and the riders must proceed around the track in an anti-clockwise direction without both wheels illegally leaving the track boundaries. Once a race is underway, no rider can receive outside assistance, including push starts, from others. Historically, pushes were allowed at the start of the race. A white line at the 30 meters mark used to designate the extent to which a push was allowed, but due to safety concerns, assistance is now illegal. Occasionally races consist of 6 riders, but this is rare as most tracks are too narrow to accommodate the extra riders safely. Scoring. Speedway operates a sliding scale for scoring. 3 points are scored for first place, 2 points for second place, and 1 point for third place. A rider does not score when finishing 4th, or failing to finish, or if excluded from a race. These points accumulate over the competition, with riders' points either counting towards individual or team placings. In the event of a tie, the race is commonly awarded as a dead heat. If it is a tie for first place, they will both receive 2 points. A tie for second place earns each rider 1 point, while a joint last finish earns each rider 0 points. Teams can use a tactical substitute rule once in a meeting. If the team is 8 or more points in arrears, they may bring in the use of a different rider in the team lineup to race in any heat except for Heat 15. This may be different in World Cup or event racing. If they are 10 or more points behind, a rider with a scheduled ride may go out for double points, in which the rider's points will be doubled if he beats a rider of the opposing team. Any rider taking a tactical substitute rider double points riders denoted by a black and white helmet color as rather than one of the four usual colored helmets. If that rider remains unbeaten by either opposition rider, his scored points are doubled and also count towards the rider's calculated match average. Competitions. International and International Individual Speedway Championship has taken various forms since its beginnings in the 1930s, with the official World Championship first held in 1936. The present FIM Speedway Grand Prix Championship, organized by Speedway Grand Prix, has taken place since 1995. The SGP uses a scoring system based on each rider's overall final position. The rider who has gained the most points at the end of the tournament is declared the world champion. American rider Greg Hancock is the current world champion. The annual British Grand Prix is currently held at the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff, Wales. Scoring in Grand Prix events changed in 2005, with riders scoring 3-2-1-0 in the races and these points being carried forward to decide the winner of each Grand Prix. At the end of the series, the highest scorer becomes the world champion. World Speedway champions include Ivan Margup, fellow New Zealander Barry Briggs, Ole Olsen, Ove Funden, Lionel Van Praag, Hans Nielsen, Tony Rickardson, Eric Gunderson and Jason Crump, both 3 times world champions, and the sport's first 2-time champion Jack Young, who won in 1951 and 1952. The Speedway World Cup is also held each year, featuring teams from the major speedway countries, usually in a series of meetings over the space of a week in the summer. In 2001, the World Cup replaced the old Speedway World Team Cup, which had first run in 1960. The current World Cup champions are Denmark. The Speedway World Pairs Championship was an annual speedway event held each year in different countries. Competing countries picked their top 2 riders to represent them. The first competition was held in 1970 and the final competition was held in 1993. From 1994, the World Pairs was merged with the World Team Cup.